Are you living the Delaware Beach lifestyle? You can't live at the beach and do nothing. This up-and-coming year-round area has lots to offer. Find out where to eat, play, and serve. Living the ultimate dream.
Hi, welcome to the 302 Lifestyle Beach Podcast. Today is a special day. We have Rachel Marshall in the house.
Hey.
Guys, if any of you have been around this area long enough to have any type of sense of living at the beach, you've probably seen lots of small businesses and lots of people coming here to retire and all sorts of good stuff going on. But with the market going on the way it is and banks being crazy, I have heard some of this gal's content on her show and had to have her on because so much good information going on. I feel like a lot of people don't know what's going on in the banking world. Now that I'm at the beach or have a business, what do I do with my money? If I'm retiring at the beach even, like, okay, I got all this free time, I got all this free money, like, what am I supposed to be doing? I think there is a lot of stuff to say about these topics and probably could go on hours on each one. But Rachel, without me blabbering on too much, you have a long list of things that you've done over the past 8 or 9 years, specifically with the Money Advantage program and company that you have. So tell us a little bit about how'd you get into this, what do you do exactly, and go from there.
Awesome. Great question. Well, I am a co-founder of the Money Advantage that we really started because we wanted to be in the position of helping people keep and control more of their money. Now, that was something that we arrived at through our own experience. My husband and I have just always been the people who we've read Dave Ramsey's book. Why am I just throwing out a name? Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We actually were just talking, we were talking about Dave Ramsey on our own show a second ago. So Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he talks about being in the right side of the quadrant, which means being a business owner, being an investor, getting money working for you. And we said, we really want to own a business someday. This is way back when we were dating. We didn't know what that was going to look like. We considered everything under the sun. And finally, we jumped into a health insurance agency and we started selling health insurance. So it was a really good way to get our feet wet in business, but interesting industry, right? When there was a lot of, the ACA was changing, the laws were changing, it was becoming really complicated. And what was interesting at the same time is that we just always have taken the path less traveled when it comes to our money. We've always been the ones that we were really disciplined savers. I should credit my husband for that. I probably wouldn't have on my own. But we ended up saving money in college when most of our friends were using their stipend that they were getting similar to us in the program my husband was in to buy flat screen TVs and live well. We ended up putting $10,000 in cash away in the bank during two years in college that we were married. And we thought, oh, hey, we're doing really good. Well, then we realized the bank, the growth on that wasn't very good. So what can we do better? Well, then we got into saving money in precious metals, which was gold and silver. And at the time, the price of that was increasing. And so we were buying in a pretty good situation and we were watching the amounts continue to increase. And we were realizing that we wanted this cash, though, not as an investment. We weren't thinking that we were going to cash out at some point. We were going to make a lot of money. We were hoping to hold it for a long time, like 30, 40, 50 years. We were just thinking store capital, long-term store of value. Problem was, then we started the business and we said we need capital to get going in the business. And at that time, I had just quit my job. So we were both working, had 2 incomes, no kids. Then I quit working because we had a baby and I was a stay-at-home mom. All of a sudden, our income is not quite in half, but almost. And we are like, okay, now we're going to start a business because I have all this free time on my hands, which you don't have free time when you have a baby, by the way. But we're like, oh, hey, we need cash. So we're going to have to cash out gold and silver to be able to do this. And the market was down. It was like half the value at that point in time. We just realized, oh, wow, we really made a huge mistake not thinking about liquidity, which is a weird word. But every single business owner and every single human has this need for liquidity, cash they can access. Definitely. Not just, hey, my net worth is going up and I'm seeing the growth of my account. That's accumulation. That's fine. But if you can't get to that money, you could be a broke millionaire And that doesn't serve anyone very well. And when you're in a cash crunch, and you need the capital quickly, you don't want to have to go to the bank and qualify for a loan. You want to be able to say, I've got the cash. So that was kind of a long path around for us figuring out, wow, we made some giant mistakes in storing capital, and how can we do better? And that's really how we came into this area of helping business owners keep in control more of their money, because we needed to keep in control more of our own money. We ended up finding infinite banking with that. And through the process, we ended up building the Money Advantage about 4 years ago now. And we help people to build time and money freedom by using cash flow strategies, infinite banking, and alternative investments. And so we can dig into as much more of that as you want.
Yeah, wow, I love all that. And I think pretty much everyone on the planet, or at least in the US, can relate to some part of that. And so unfortunately, I didn't really start saving or really kind of planning anything until probably like 35, which shows my age a little bit. Probably look like I'm 12, but
That's okay.
yeah.
I look
So
younger than I
all
am
of a
too.
sudden, I like wake up and I'm like, okay, like actually, I should be like way farther along than I am. So then I started like thinking about diversification and doing different things, and maybe keeping my money in the bank isn't such a good idea, as it loses 2%, I believe, average every year. So you went over three amazing things. So tell us a little bit more, deep dive a little bit on those three things and how people can use those.
Awesome. So I will answer that, and I'll answer really quickly, because I think at a high level, when you operate a business, you have revenue coming in. And a lot of times people will think, my number one objective is to have as much revenue as possible. And revenue is a great thing, but if you don't keep any of it, you're not a profitable business. And that, my friend, is the challenge that way too many entrepreneurs and business owners find themselves in, where they have a lot of either overhead or expenses. And often, Mike Michalowicz is one of my favorite authors. He wrote a book called Profit First, and we've had him on our show, The Money Advantage. And I just finished another book of his called The Pumpkin Plan, both fabulous books. But the idea of being profitable is that if you make $1 million, it's nice to say, I make $1 million in my business, but if you only keep 999,000 of that, you're not any better off than somebody who maybe has a job or who's flat broke. And so the challenge with being in business is that a lot of times you have these money leaks or things flowing out of your control. Money leaks is just a fancy way of saying that, but which are not your fault, which are things that it's not just that you're spending too much money on marketing or on Facebook advertising or, on maybe employees or contractors. It's not necessarily those expenses. Usually it's things like taxes and how you pay your loans and liabilities. Those are some of the key ones that can be these giant money leaks that have money flowing out of your control. So what we do with business owners especially is we look at their full financial picture and say, how can we help you keep more of the money you're making without changing the way that you're spending money necessarily? And sometimes there's definitely ways that people can change their spending to improve profitability. But often it's those unseen leaks like taxes that just have this money siphoning off, where there's a strategic way to not only pay less tax today, but to always pay less tax for every day going forward in the future as well. So strategically looking at cash flow strategies is really the first step in becoming financially free, because you need to be profitable first. Then none of the profitability does any good if you are in a position where all of the money that you make and store in your control is at risk of being lost. So there's one analogy I like to use, and it's that if you're building a house and you have a roof on top and that roof is damaged in some way, then financial storms from outside can get into the house and destroy whatever you've built inside. And if any one life event can step in and make you poor, then you're not on stable ground. So that's,
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't like that, but I like the analogy.
It's a reality that I think is hard to hear, but makes a lot of sense. And I don't know if maybe that's what you're alluding to there, but
yeah.
So we want to make sure that if we have this wealth that we're building, that it's not being eroded by things that, like, what if a disability happened in my house? How would that be handled? What if I couldn't make money at this job anymore? What if I became sick or had a high medical bill? What would those things do to the wealth I'm building? What about a car accident? What about liability of my business with someone else? What about a potential lawsuit? What about my dog bites someone else in the park? Those are issues of liability that you could say, well, if somebody could sue me for that money that I've made and that I'm building up as my own capital, and now it's all gone, you're in a really dangerous position. So things like umbrella insurance and having the proper estate planning for your family and having asset protection in place in your business. And even honestly, just for most people, this is your general liability. This is your umbrella policy. This is having health insurance, disability, life insurance is a key piece of that. And privatized banking is also a key piece of that protection element because it helps you protect dollars that you're saving because they're not going to drop in value.
Okay, so just to recap before you move on to the next one. So step one is strategic, looking at where money is like leaking from.
Yes.
Okay, yes. And then step two is making sure that you're covered in all different areas of your life, so you don't lose all your money with something, stupid that you don't even think about,
Yes.
So, okay. All right. So
awesome.
Perfect. Love it.
So then the third step is to say, okay, now I'm keeping as much of my money as possible and I'm profitable and I'm saving a portion of all I make. I'm going to actually allude to a book. Have you heard of the book called The Richest Man in Babylon?
It sounds familiar, but I haven't looked at it or read it.
It's interesting. It's a short read. It's kind of written like old English. They talk about these and thous and stuff in the book. But what's really interesting, it's these principles for building financial wealth. And the first one is set thy purse to fattening. So this means, again, pay yourself first or be profitable. So when you're in the position of your saving 20 to 30% of your income, you're protecting that money. Now you're saying, okay, well, do I just want to save this forever? Or how do I put my money to work? Because ultimately the goal is to have my money working for me. So I'm not in that constant rat race of having my time chasing dollars, but now I'm in a position where I have assets that are creating income streams for me.
Which goes back to the rich dad, poor dad.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, perfect. Absolutely. Because then you're in a position where you could say, well, do I just want to have an accumulated pile of net worth, or do I want to have assets that produce streams of income for me? Because if you're in a position where you own a business that you can completely step away from it, it's a self-sustaining business, and you own property that is cash flowing on a regular basis, you can build up cash flow from assets that replaces your income. And that is truly financial freedom. And then you have the time freedom that is really what most people want. It's not just, I want to have a lot of money, but they want to know, do I have enough income to support me doing what I want with my time so I can really have the purpose that I want to fulfill in this world.
Love that.
So then that comes into really fulfilling a legacy and leaving that to your children or grandchildren or a charity or whoever you want to leave that to, or even a spouse, and then really making the greatest impact that you can in the world and being able to be truly fulfilled. So that's really the process that I look at, framing the whole entire concept of financial thinking. And if it sounds simple, I think it's very simple. If it sounds like something you haven't heard before, I think it's because most people don't think this way financially. We just think, well, how much can I invest? What rate of return can I get? How much net worth can I get? How am I going to turn that net worth somehow into an income stream in the future? And the challenge with thinking that way is that you can have a lot of roadblocks and hurdles all along the way. When you're putting money at risk, it can drop in value. We say, instead of investing automatically, which is what most people do, and saving if they have anything left over at the end, we say it's best to save automatically, which means it's automatic and you don't have to think about it. It's not something that if you get around to it, you'll get around to it. It's something that's going to automatically happen at the beginning. You're saving first, and then you're investing intentionally in what you know and control, especially as an active investor. So I would go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I love all that. And I can see in my own progress of realizing all these things that you just said, in my mistakes too. So yeah, so I want to say that I've safely come to this, and we're doing everything properly, but I think a lot of it is just learning and not beating yourself up and just being appreciative for being in a place to want to think about our future
Yes.
and all those things.
I
So
think you
I
couldn't have
love,
said that better. And I just, not to cut you off, but you are in a wonderful place by even just admitting that, saying that. And I think honestly, we all in this world, if we can get to a position of saying, I want to learn and do better and make the best decision I can with the information I have right now, that's all it takes. There's no such thing as a perfect decision. And there's no such thing as knowing exactly what to do until you've built up the knowledge base. And you have to make decisions with what information you have now and then just continue to be growing.
yeah, I love that, Rachel. And I also I love listening to like videos or really wealthy people or successful people say that, they chased money and, but it never made them happy. And I think, well, I'm sure it made life a lot easier. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think if you're always seeking something outside of yourself to make you happy inside, when you realize that, okay, I love how you start with, well, what lifestyle do you want to have? Like, and a lot of times over a certain amount of money, your lifestyle doesn't really change. Your pile just gets bigger,
Mm-hmm.
So if you start looking at, okay, well, what lifestyle do I want to have? And, what money do I need to set it aside, automatically saving money to be able to not have this stress of fear of money or worry that, I'm still going to live the life that I'm living anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you have that and you know what lifestyle, you're not chasing this giant thing that really isn't going to change your life anyways. And then when you get to the end, when you have like all this money, well, now what? Now you're still not happy. So just finding that happiness first. I love all that. And so, okay, so how do you guys, if I'm in a place where, I realize that I need to start thinking smarter about my family or my money or just my lifestyle in general, and I'm not sure if I'm covered under all these different insurances and things that you mentioned. First of all, how can people get in touch with you? And then what do you guys do? Like if I'm someone like this coming to you, tell me a little bit about the process.
Okay, so how do they find us? What do we do? And I want to say one thing before I cover that. So I just want to make sure I don't lose those points.
Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
No, you, so you mentioned something really cool here before, and it was about you don't necessarily need to be seeking something outside of yourself. And that was extremely wise. I think so often people think money is going to make them happy, but really it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what money even is, because money is a medium of exchange. But what happens is that if you are giving value to somebody else and they are receiving value, money is just a tangible tool that we use to certify that value is exchanged. So if you're looking for money, you will never find it. If you look to figure out what people need and figure out how to solve problems for them and be the best friend you can be to them. And I'm not saying do everything under the sun, but fundamentally, money is made by providing value to others. And if you think about that from a big picture perspective, think about the people who are writing the most well-read books and that are getting paid to speak on stages the most. And the people who are making the most, think of like Boeing. Well, they're solving a giant need for aircraft that works, that people can depend on. So if you can figure out how to improve and expand the level of problems that you solve, that's where money starts in the first place. And as a business owner, you and probably anyone listening feels that and probably already intuitively knows that if you figure out how to fix people's problems, you will be more profitable in the beginning, have more revenue, and then it's figuring out how do I manage that revenue that I have coming in. Wow. So I love, that was just really insightful when you said, don't be looking for something outside of yourself. You were absolutely right on when you said that.
Yeah, I say something smart about once every 100 things.
That was pretty smart. That was pretty smart. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. So not to leave your question. So how do people find us? What do we do? So you can go to themoneyadvantage.com. That's the best way to find us. There's two primary ways that you can connect with our work. We have one that's completely free and it's all education based. We have a podcast, we have videos, we have articles. We do a live show every week. And this is just for people to really start building for any real entrepreneurial thinking business owner. And what we mean by that is somebody who is thinking about providing solutions and being innovative and growing. For any business owner in that category who is wanting to take control of their financial life, we have a wealth of educational materials that they can dig into just to be able to do that. And then if anyone wants to talk with us directly, we have a team of advisors that they would sit down and talk with you. We have we have multiple ways that you can work with us, but anyone can have a free initial strategy call. So that's also on themoneyadvantage.com. And what you can do is talk with an advisor if you're ready to implement strategies and move forward and be able to say, okay, I'm making money now. I need to figure out what to do with that money and how to save it best, how to put it in my control, and how to build time and money freedom. We'll help you with those cash flow strategies, with infinite banking and those protection components we talked about, and then finding the right investments that will put you in control. And the right investment is not the right investment for everybody. It means what is the best thing for you to be investing based on your knowledge and your skill set.
Okay, and I think I asked a couple questions, but I wanted to just go back around to, and guys, we're going to post all this, these links and information down below, so you guys can check all this out. So I'm sitting here, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, okay, I'm very interested. I know I need to start thinking ahead, but what's something tangible I can do right now to just decide whether or not I even need someone else, to help?
That's awesome. Very awesome. I would encourage you, if you're trying to say, I'm not sure if I need extra help, I would just really encourage you to check out some of our free resources. And if you even just went to themoneyadvantage.com, check out a podcast or two. Find out, is what we're talking about, does it resonate with you? Does it feel like something that you're looking for? And if you are in a position of wanting to take control of your financial life, find something to really invest in terms of reading, listening to podcasts. I remember starting to listen to podcasts way back. I mean, it was before we started business, probably 10 years ago, and listening to podcasts while I was running and while I was doing work in the kitchen, washing dishes, and just starting to build my way of thinking that's different than, I don't know, just vacuuming the floor. But instead, I'm like doing something with my mind at the same time. And just that pursuit of knowledge then helps you figure out who is the right person to help me. We're not the right person for everyone. It matters what you're trying to accomplish and what your goals are. So if you're trying to figure out, do I need an advisor? Do I not need an advisor? The one thing that I will leave you with on that question is, we believe you are the best person to be your own best financial advisor. And how you do that is by gathering the knowledge and information to be able to execute and make decisions. So of course, you're going to probably need the support of people around you to do that. And we absolutely can provide that. But ultimately, the control piece comes down to you making that decision to become self-educated.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so you heard it, guys. So I would think that, yeah, even if someone's just listening to this, they're probably interested in money and things like that. I was listening to one of your shows, and I was really excited to learn about the banking system. Not to dive into that because that was a long thing to discuss. But so I have money and I put it in my savings account, and I have an app, so I invest in stocks. That's all. I don't do that specifically, but let's just say that's all I do. What would you say to that type of person? And if you could pick maybe like 3 things to kind of look into, or that might be simple for somebody to start doing.
That is awesome. Really good question. So what I would say to start with is focus on savings first. I think a lot of times people jump straight to the investing, which then if you're taking out that savings component of the protection, the middle layer that I talked about, you're at the risk of being in a situation where you need capital, you can't get to it. A lot of people invest through qualified plans, which is things like 401ks and IRAs and SEP IRAs and solo 401ks if you're a business owner. And what can happen is that you're putting cash into mutual funds through these tools, but then you're in a position where what if you need the capital and you can't access it really quickly? So I would say the first thing that you want to think about is not investing in anything with risk. Anything that has the risk of losing money is an investment. You want to think about savings being a separate category of your money. Savings is money that you put in somewhere that is not going to drop in value, except for the inflation eroding. But honestly, having money in a bank savings account is valuable to you as opposed to having all of your money in investments. So I would say the very, very, very first step would be develop strong savings habits, develop a strong money habit to build savings first, and then figure out what do I want to invest those savings into that's going to produce that return for me. But that discipline and habit of consistently saving first before you spend money every single month is probably the number one key for anybody to build that strong foundational.
At what point would I feel safe enough? Okay, I have enough savings. So I've heard like 3 to 6 months. Is that?
Great question. I would normally say 3 to 6, and this kind of has to do with your personal comfort level as well. We typically would say 6 months of expenses if you're not a business owner, about 12 months of expenses if you are. That would be more ideal. This is thinking, if I lost my income, where would I be able to support my lifestyle and be able to pay the bills? So if you first had that, you're thinking of an emergency fund. Now, the cool thing is that when you save money, it's an emergency fund and an opportunity fund. And I think most people just think, well, I'm just saving for a rainy day. I'm just saving $1,000. I'm just saving for a medical bill or something like that. But if you think instead of expanding your definition of savings to being an emergency and an opportunity fund, now it starts getting exciting.
I never heard that.
Because now I am always building my savings and I'm never stopping building my savings. And because then, and we have an article on this as well. I can give you the specific link for it if you're interested, but we talk about how to structure your savings and how to have it in different components, because sometimes you want money that you can access within 15 minutes. Sometimes you want money that maybe it's going to take a week to get to, but it's there for you and you know that it's stable and it's savings. So when you mentioned the banking or infinite banking, that is a strategy of being able to save money using a whole life insurance policy. And specifically what this does is you're putting dollars into premium. They're building a death benefit for you, but they're also building cash value inside that death benefit. It's a portion of the money you can use during your life. And as you're continuing to build cash value inside the policy, you can borrow against it. Rather than taking money out like you would a bank account, you're borrowing against it, which means the money inside keeps on growing while I'm using it somewhere else. So for instance, I can have $100,000 of cash value inside of my policy. I can take a, say, $80,000 policy loan, invest that capital into my business, and then repay the loan whenever I choose to, which is really awesome. I can pay back monthly, annually. I can even just not pay anything for 3 years and then pay back all in a lump sum. So it gives me a lot of flexibility to use this capital for investing. I can use that for a real estate deal. I can use that for a business transaction. I can use it for an emergency as well if I need to. But that capital and having those reserves just gives me, I'm using it in my personal life, and all of our clients are primarily using that as well. And it is a powerful tool to be able to have that peace of mind.
Rachel, I love it. And guys, if this has sounded interesting to you, I've, over the past several years, been really diving deep into this type of stuff. And I just love automatically having a savings going. I even started like a little, it always interested me to have like a little cash thing going on. So like every time I go to the grocery store, I would just pull out $20,
Nice.
something just simple like that, where I just constantly am adding to some type of savings, and how I got several different ways of saving. And
so good.
Yeah. And then then diving into investing, I also learned about the life death benefit insurance and investing and saving aspect and loan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all of that stuff. So guys, if you're interested in any of this stuff, definitely want to check out all of their free content, and we'll have the links down below. I just wanted to throw that out there. Rachel, I know we kind of skimmed through some really big topics.
Sure, we did.
And so, okay, so if we could just sum up like one thing. So what is one of your biggest, well, you mentioned saving, so I guess that would be one of your biggest things.
I can come up with another one if you want.
Yeah, what's like your one thing that out of all the people that you see or have seen, or even in your own experience, what's like the one thing that you could say that people may not know about money or investing?
Good question. I thought you were going to say the one thing that they need to do. One thing they may not know. All right, I'll share this one. We just mentioned this on a podcast we did earlier today. I would look deeply into the word tax deferral. The reason is that a lot of times people are deferring tax, and you may or may not think of it as deferring tax. Let me just explain what this is, because people don't think of it in this word usually. Usually it's a strategy that is brought to you by a financial advisor, sometimes a CPA, and it's this idea of saving tax. And that's how it's presented, that you're going to save tax. So tax deferral, what that does is it takes capital, cash that you have, and it puts it into a tool where you don't pay tax on that money today. It's called tax deferral. And what happens is that this year's income, then you're not paying tax on that portion that you put into the tax deferred tool. Usually it's like a 401k, an IRA. This is that type of tool. What happens though is deferral is another word for postpone. The tax is not being saved. The tax is being postponed to the future. What future? The future of when you take the money out. So say you're putting money into something and you're putting in $5,000 a year, you're putting that over the course of your whole life and you're deferring tax. Now you get to, right now, the age 70 and a half is the age for required minimum distributions. You have to start taking this money out and you have to start paying tax at that time. Now, if you take money out before that age, you're going to pay the tax plus a penalty for taking it out early. I think it's actually before age 50 something, 59 and a half right now. They changed the time frame on that a little bit. From time to time. But what happens is, say you're 35 or you're 42 and you now have $20,000 in a tax deferred tool and you say, well, I want to use that money or I need to use that money. You're going to pay the tax and a penalty, a 10% penalty in addition to the tax to get the money out. Now, what's interesting about that, though, is that a lot of times people will say, well, that was for my retirement. I was hoping to save that for retirement, but I'm going to have to use it now in my actual life. And that's where you kind of get into trouble and the challenge of having to pay these additional taxes and penalties. Mm-hmm. So I personally, that thing that most people wouldn't know or wouldn't think about is that tax deferring or saving tax today by putting money into a tax deferred vehicle causes you to pay tax in the future. And the biggest challenge for me is that nobody knows what taxes are going to be in the future. I don't even know. I do not have a crystal ball. And I can tell you that I don't think they're going down. I don't think my income is going to be less. I don't think I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket. I don't think I'm going to have more tax deductions. I'll probably have fewer of them because I'm not going to have kids in my home anymore. So I'm going to be in a position where potentially I'm going to be pushed up into a higher tax bracket because of my income and the success that I'm building through my business. And oh, by the way, do I believe the government is going to keep things exactly as they are today every day in the future going forward? I'll just let that question be something that sits on your own mind, because we know it's changed like every single year, every administration. And if I just don't want to be in that kind of an unknown situation where taxes could go up. And now I'm in a position where, wow, I put $100,000 away or $1 million away in this type of tool. And now taxes are 50% and I only own 500,000 of that for me to use. And the rest goes to the IRS. I don't want to be in that position.
I like that. And yeah, I've also heard and learned that, paying later is always better, because you always want to have like a nice, I don't know, if I have an opportunity to pay something in advance to get a tax break now, of course I might do that. But yeah, I love like deferring and just, why would I want to give up all my capital or all my liquid money now if I can just put it aside and have it available to use? Love that.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is the idea of as well, your tax exemptions and the way that people sometimes will like prepay their tax on their paycheck and then get a tax return at the end of the year, which that essentially is you've just loaned your money to the IRS for them to use all year. Yeah. You get the tax check back at the, in March or whenever you file. I mean, you can get it in February if you file early. So you get your tax check back. You're like, yeah, I've got all this money to spend. Well, it's actually your money all along. You just gave it over for borrowing purposes to the IRS. Instead, you could have kept that all along, not got a tax refund, but had more money along the way. And so in that case, I would rather pay tax on tax deadline day rather than pay tax all year through.
Love it. Rachel, thank you so much. And are you ready for a lightning round? Quick,
sure.
2 questions.
Absolutely.
As a mom and a family, what's one little secret that you've discovered, maybe especially when you were just starting out, that families or mothers or somebody listening can use to save money?
Good question. All right. So I would say number one is, there's so many good ones. Mothers can use to save money.
Or something you did. Like,
I would say, think about not just how to save money, like spend less, but think about how to make more. And you can even help your kids start businesses to think entrepreneurially and make more.
Ooh, love it. That's a good one. I didn't think you were going to say that.
I didn't either.
Oh, cool. Okay. And what's the best book, tool, or software? I think you mentioned a couple. But what's a best book, tool, software, or video that you've discovered in your life that was your biggest, like, aha, or game changer, or one that you loved?
So many. I'm going to have to go back to Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. Actually, the one that I'm referring to is the one called Cash Flow Quadrant. So that was a real life changer for me. Actually, I was homeschooled and my parents said, I was in 8th grade. They said, hey, why don't you read these books that you can count it as you're reading? And I was like, okay, sure. Then we got the cash flow game. And I can tell you that I started trying to figure it out then, and it was kind of cool, but I didn't really fully start understanding it. Then later on, I was able to teach the game to other people. Well, before I taught the game, I got obsessed with it. Honestly, my husband, the baby went to bed. This was like 9 years ago. And I said, I've got to figure out how to make this work. And I stayed up till like 1:30 in the morning, and I won that game multiple times because I was obsessed with it. The cash flow game is a fantastic teaching tool. It works for you. It works for your kids. There's an online version you can use. The game itself is pretty pricey. I think we found it at Goodwill for like $5 unopened. So that was really awesome. But yeah, I would encourage that game was that game in the book, profound teaching tool.
Cool. I have to put a link down below for that. That is awesome. Rachel, thank you so much, guys, for listening. And Rachel, thank you for being on. I just love money and numbers, and I'm just learning that saving and investing and eventually, having money make money is probably like the best secret, I think. And thank you.
Well, thank you, Dylan, for having me. This has just been really a pleasure talking with you today. You and Daisy are doing great things. Keep up the great work. The podcast is awesome, and your business, just keep moving forward with that. And I really appreciate you opening up this conversation today.
All right, guys, and keep living the 302 lifestyle. If you're trying to live this beach life, money is definitely going to be a big important factor for you. So check out all the links down below. And in the meantime, keep living the lifestyle.
Wish you could spend more time having fun and less time with chores? Go to 302beachtalk.com to get $20 off a home cleaning. You'll be entered to win a completely free cleaning. Eat, play, serve. Sponsored by That Guy with a Broom.